Hello, welcome back to another edition of Hobby News Daily. Today's Hobby Spotlight has Chris Carlin from PSA, Director of Customer Care. Let me get that right. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing great, Danny. Great to see you.
We were just talking off camera, and you're a Padres and Angels fan, so I'm rearranging my questions. Uh, how often do you get to the playoffs?
Well, we got to the playoffs last year for the Padres. That was a lot of fun. They went a little deeper than we thought, and then tragically, the owner Peter Seidler passed away over after that, and he was a really good dude. I had met him a couple times, just very fan friendly, and he was spending money for the team in a way that we had never seen before. So. This going into this season, we were a bit unsure of what was going to happen, and then they signed a guy like Louis Arise, and some of the moves they made with Soto, some of the guys they got back, Michael King in particular, one of our starting pitchers, have really produced. So it's been a really fun season, and I'm excited to see what they can do in the playoffs. You know, you always want to just get to the playoffs. You never know what'll happen, but I think it was 97. Padres made it to the World Series and got swept by the Yankees, and I was at all those home games, and it was it was tough, but it was so fun because as Padres fans, we go in with no expectation. Like, we don't expect to win these games, and then when we actually get further, we're like, oh, that was pretty cool. So it's fun collecting them as well because. They're not super expensive, but they're all guys like Manny Machado is definitely going to be a Hall of Famer, and Fernando Tatis Jr. is just so fun to watch. So it's a fun team for sure.
In a lot of ways, I think they're where the Orioles could be in a couple of years. A couple of homegrown players, sign a couple guys.
Yeah, Orioles have some great
young talent,
Yeah.
And I love the Luis Arise move, by the way, also.
Yeah. I just bought one of his logo man, and I was like, I was going. You know how you go back and forth on offers on eBay, and I was on my last one. I was like, "Hey man, like this is pretty high. Like what's the lowest you go?" And he made me a great deal, so I'm excited to get that card in.
All right, so let's take a step back. Before you were at PSA, you put in, was it 24 years at Upper Deck, something like that?
That's right. Yeah. So my first job really out of college, working for the trading card giant when they had every license, it was an intimidating place to work as someone who grew up collecting cards, but also very exciting because holy cow, it's like I'm going to Willy Wonka's, his place every day as a chocolate fanatic. So it was really special to be there in those early days. I started in '97, so I wasn't there when they were in Yorba Linda or when they were just getting started. But I've developed a lot of relationships with people who were there earlier, and really I want to try to share the story about some of those early days. So. I recently sat down with Dwayne Bice, who is one of the founders of the company, former California Angel pitcher, and he shared some really good stories with me. So I'll be sharing that soon. But it was a really special and unique place to spend my 20s, 30s, and early 40s.
You said right out of college. What was your actual first job at Upper Deck?
So interesting. It was just a temp job. I found out they were there. I was like, walked into HR in my suit and with my resume and said, I'll do anything.
Right.
I will do anything. So my first job was a temporary job for 3 days. Me and two other dudes. They were in cutoff jeans. I was wearing a suit. And it was an athlete had used the wrong pen signing, and they had bled onto the backs of the cards. So we had to carefully take Q-tips dipped in alcohol and clean the backs of those cards without it touching the side, or else the alcohol would get into the card and affect it. And I cleaned the hell out of those cards, Danny. So they saw what a bright card cleaner I was. Imagine that. Card cleaning's my first gig, and now I'm at PSA. They brought it from there. I started working assembling sets for the leagues. the leagues would each get, like a players association would get a certain number of sets, and then they would use those with their players. And there were other people, media and things like that, that would get sets. It was kind of interesting. My brother worked for Roy Firestone at the time,
Sure.
and I put together a set that went to Roy Firestone that Roy Firestone later gave my brother because he liked baseball cards. So it was interesting to see that. It's one of my favorite collectibles I own.
Now, is that an honor or a regift? How do you look at that?
I guess it's a regift. Yeah.
Sounds like a Seinfeld episode.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so you're at Upper Deck for 24 years. Very much, I got to tell you, a lot of people considered you the face there. But you got this opportunity at PSA, and what attracted you to PSA? What made you say finally? I mean, 24 years is a long time. I got to imagine the angst and anxiety of just change would get to anybody. But what made you pull the trigger?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't want to move. Upper Deck's right down the street from me, and I had such great relationships with everyone there. I really, really loved working with the NHL and NHLPA. Became really good friends with those folks, and it was definitely hard, but I was kind of in many ways in autopilot, I guess, where it was just the same thing over and over again, and I wanted to challenge myself to kind of learn some new things. But when the offer came from PSA, I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat it. It was a very generous offer. And then it afforded me some other opportunities. My parents are getting older and they live in Mission Viejo. So I live in San Diego, and Collector's headquarters is in Santa Ana. If you're not familiar with Southern California, I'm basically south. My parents are in the middle, and then is PSA headquarters. So, in a weird way, I loved the fact that I was going to be able to maybe my folks a couple, times a month, and just check in on them more frequently, and have that, and that was really important to me as well. So, it was a mixture of things for sure, but more than anything, I've just been really appreciative of all I've learned since I made this move. It's rare that you get the opportunity to experience new things and learn another side of the business. And it's really, at Upper Deck, I felt I knew about this much of the hobby, and working for PSA and collectors, it's like this, everything from coin collecting to video game collecting to comics now and banknotes. All the different types of memorabilia. It's been really, really just a lot of fun, and I'm really, really impressed with the talent that Nat Turner and company have put together at Collectors. I'm frequently feeling like I'm the dumbest person in the room, but it's one of those things that's also a lot of fun, just listening to the smart people come up with solutions to situations and things along those lines.
What was your view of grading before the move, and has that changed at all?
Totally. Yeah. I was a hobby conspiracy theorist on grading. I was like, they must manipulate the population reports to make their cards more expensive, and you could totally catch a grader on a bad day, and all the things that you always hear. And then when I got to look behind the curtain and see how the sausage was made, it was, oh, wow, like these people are really experts. Like they really know what they're doing. And the thing that blew me away the most was the consistency. And I know sometimes grading companies get bad raps for consistency, but it's pretty remarkable how two different graders can look at the same card and immediately come to the same conclusion. Like, I often say that our graders are kind of like those people who there were those pictures in the 80s where if you looked at them long enough, you could see like a 3-dimensional image. And that's how
I had an Escher.
Yeah. Their eyes are just attuned to a different frequency. And I'll often be like, guys, I don't see this. Like, what's the problem with this card? I'm like, right there. Like, what's wrong with you, idiot? And but I will say it's usually, I think people know to look at the corners, edges, and centering, where I frequently see people miss, including myself when I'm submitting, is on the surface. And buying a light like this, one of the lights with magnification, or having a loop to actually look at the card's surface while you cradle it, technique that our graders use, is a really good way to see if there's any defects on the surface that you may have missed before you submit a card for grading. But yeah, to answer your question, I didn't fully believe in it, and now I would say 70% of my collection is slabbed. So I've been very busy with getting things in plastic, and my wife is like, these take up more room now that they're in the holders, and I'm like, yeah, well, they're protected,
Right.
Exactly. So, but no, I definitely see the value in it, the merit in it, the importance of it, and I've just been blown away by the professionalism of the organization, for sure.
The first time you went into, I don't know if it's a grading area or room or part of the building, did you feel like kind of like going into Area 51, like you were finally seeing behind the curtain? Was that a weird feeling?
Yeah, I've been going to shows for 25 years, and you see those back areas, and you're like, oh, what happens back there? And there's always whispering and people like this and a big security guard, and you're like, what is happening? So to be back there, I felt uncomfortable. I felt like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to get in anyone's way. But at the same time, I soaked it all in and saw the techniques they used, and went through one of the training programs called Grader U. Actually, is a smaller version of what our graders go through to get a better understanding of what they look for and how they use a variety of tools and tactics to arrive at a conclusion for a card's grade or autograph grade. And it was really, really cool. Like, not to hobby nerd out, but I was hobby nerding out, like it was like, oh my gosh, that's Jackie Curiel. She's like a badass at PSA, she's been doing it forever. And working alongside her is like one of the most amazing things I've ever done in my career. She is a sharp, special person. So, but there's a lot of those there at collectors. So it's fun.
As far as the hobby itself, has it changed your perception of set collectors versus investors versus different types of people who submit? Has that changed your opinion at all? Because you said you put together sets from the manufacturer side, but set collectors, what I'm talking about, are people who are putting together vintage sets or 80s and 90s. And it's not so much about the number grade, although very competitive on the registry, but it is about just getting that whole set protected and slabbed.
Yeah, it's something that I learned a lot about. My first national, I went to the set registry dinner and just went from table to table talking to, our most passionate collectors. And there were a few things that came up. One was wanting to have an elevated experience for the set registry dinner, and we've definitely taken that to another level at collectors. But
there's nothing like card people to want better food. That is like our hobby slogan.
Yeah, way to someone's heart is through their stomach in most cases. It's how it works for me. But I was really, I don't know. The other thing I took away from talking to those set registry members was I need to get my whole set done, and the pricing hasn't come down in a way that allows me financially to do that. And it's not cheap to get items graded in most cases, but there's definitely value in it. So we took a lot of that feedback and came up with different programs. But the main thing we try to do is have these monthly specials where we can make sure we're feeding the PSA pipeline in a way that doesn't create a backlog type situation. We're not turning all the water on and just letting it rush out. We're opening up those opportunities for collectors for a month. They get the cards in, and then we look at other areas that could use it. But we've tried to do some specials that are more friendly to set registries, some vintage specials with lower declared values on those cards. So getting your base cards isn't quite as expensive as it used to be through those specials. But we want to do more of that for sure. There's more we could be opening up. And our most passionate collectors are those vintage collectors. And we understand that they want to put those sets together. So it's a priority for us to make sure that there's opportunities that exist several times throughout the year for them to get things in at a more wallet friendly price point.
Yeah, as somebody who's working on the 57 set, my goal one day is to have the whole thing in PSA slabs, and
That would be awesome.
that is definitely something that I'm interested in. So
Yeah, that
I'm
would be
glad you
very
guys are
cool.
doing that. The last couple years in the hobby, probably almost mirroring your move to PSA, has been crazy. I think there's been more stories and drama and M&A and this and that. Do you almost feel like it's changed in the last couple of years as much as it changed in 24 years at Upper Deck?
I tell people all the time there will be books written about this era in the industry. There will be movies made about this era in the industry. There will be documentaries. There's already been a documentary, a couple of smaller ones on the hobby, because it's fascinating. It's fascinating what's happening, and every day it seems like there's some new bomb that drops or license that's won or lost, and how the companies pivot and change direction. Like just the whole the most recent one with Upper Deck seemingly losing the Marvel license to Fanatics, but before that, you could tell that they had a sense that that was coming because they signed DC, and I think Upper Deck doing DC cards is going to be so cool. I'm really bummed about the Marvel situation, although I think Fanatics will do a good job. But Upper Deck felt like that more boutique option, for those cards. And I'm looking around my desk because I know I just opened. This was such a fun break. The Marvel Avengers.
Oh, those are beautiful.
So you know PMGs and all sorts of fun stuff. I just had a blast with it. So these are all my cards. I've got to get graded now from opening that. But I think going back to your original question, it's crazy all the things that have happened in the last couple of years and the way that the hobby landscape has changed, and even for us at PSA, going from working with Golden to now eBay, where you can take your cards right from grading, sell them on eBay, never have to. Danny, I tried to do some listings the other weekend. It took me 3 hours. I got 8 done, and it just takes a long time to get things listed right. And now we take all the
It's
friction
arduous.
out of
There's
that.
no question about it. Nobody who does listings enjoys it.
Yeah. So now you can go from grading, just click the button to sell it on eBay, and next thing you know, you got money in your account. So through PSA doing that, like we're now, I think, the number 3 eBay store for trading cards. So it's been amazing to see how quickly we've been able to ramp that relationship up, and how it removes a lot of friction to give collectors a path to liquidity if they choose to. So it's been fun.
You led right into my next question: is the digital change in the hobby, and the ability of what can be done now online versus having to go to a show or having to go to your LCS. The opportunities did, especially with social media, really how the hobby's running in a lot of ways. But does that put pressure on you for points of contact in person to really make those connections with people and the activations, or is it much more digital dependent, a combination?
It is a combination. I mean, one thing Nat Turner has done is made PSA a lot more tech savvy and a lot more tech friendly. If you haven't used the PSA app before, I mean, you are missing out, because now you can take a picture of the card while you're doing your submission, and it's like, here's the card. How many do you have? I've got 3. Enter 3, add it to your order, and it's done. So it's like so easy, because sometimes when you're entering submissions, you're like, I think that's 2017, and maybe it'll come out, maybe it won't. But now, based on all the images that we've taken in, our product and tech team have made it where they can use image-based recognition to help people fill out their submission forms, which is so cool. And then, having things like a grade reveal functionality where you could spin the card around and see what the grade is right after it completed is such a cool experience. So, but I've found that collectors are creatures of habit. and they like to do the same things the same way all the time. And the way how quickly this market has moved in a variety of different ways, and purchasing directly from Tops or trying to get in an auction with Panini, or it's all changed, and it's so different, and it needs explaining. So one thing that I've been, I guess, one of the guys leading the charge on is getting out there in front of customers more. And coming out of the pandemic, we knew that people wanted our services, but how do you get in front of them? And the best way is get in front of them every weekend. We're sending teams out all over, North America to visit different shops, do these drop-off events, go to different shows, just be very open to getting everywhere we can to get in front of people to show them, here's how the app works, and here's how grade reveal works, and here's how you can list an item on eBay, and here's what the PSA vault is. So a lot of that requires explanation. So I think last year we did about 50 different events. This year we're at about 80, and next year we're looking to do over 100. So if you want to see where PSA is going to be, you can check out psacard.com/shows, psacard.com/shows, and you'll get a calendar of about a month out. And there's about 10 different events we do each month, all over the place. So whether it be a small Pokemon shop to Tom Fish's fantastic store in Virginia, we're all over the place. And it's been a lot. That really is what fills my cup, is getting in front of collectors, explaining to them what grading is and how they can use it to resell items or what have you, or use Set Registry to make friendships and collect items together. You just have to be in front of people to do that. And that's seeing the light go on in collectors' heads and have a better understanding of, oh, here's how this works, is so rewarding to me and our team. So if you've got questions about grading or have never graded before, definitely check us out at one of these events. Everyone is on our team. A lot of them come from Disney. Like, they're very customer focused and very focused on making sure the customer walks away with a good feeling and a good understanding for what we do.
Well, if they're coming from Disney, my favorite stat is a book I read years ago. The average piece of trash stays on the ground at Disney for under 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So that's the training that they get over there.
Yeah.
First class. I've seen you at just about every show I've gone to. So I'd like you to amend. You only live in California part-time.
Well, my wife says that, it's getting harder to travel to all these events because I've got two young boys who are really getting into collecting. And so I brought them to the Burbank show, the West Coast Card Show, a few weeks back on Sunday, because the first days it shows, like, I'm really busy. If someone's got something, a question, I just have to deal with some of the more escalated situations sometimes, which I love. It's being able to help our most passionate fans with the most important things. But it's hard to have two little towheads running around at my tail, when that's happening. So, but Sundays are usually a quieter day at the show, and we went up there, and I talked to Rob, because usually some dealers leave on Sundays, and they were able to set up at a table and give out cards because Mom said we had too much. And then they did some wheeling and dealing too, and they just had the best day. So for me, it's tricky to get to all these shows when you've got, a family. But now being able to incorporate them a little bit more, one's 11, one's 13. So they could cruise around a show all day. But I am very mindful of the fact, and it's kind of like karma. In my early days at Upper Deck, I would do a lot of these events too. And there were what we called show kids, who were the kids of the dealers who would just cruise around and ask for freebies and promos, and you'd see them every 20 minutes. And it was like, oh my gosh. So I don't want my kids to be those prototypical show kids, but at the same time, it's really fun for them to be able to experience the hobby. And I'm just so blessed that they actually enjoy it. So.
Well, I've got 13-year-old twin boys, so I certainly understand that age group. And one out of the two is a card fan. I don't know how identical twins can be that different, but
they're all different. It's so crazy.
It is. It
So
is. One of them loves playing sports, and one of them loves following it. So I
yeah,
guess either into sports at all, but
yeah,
it is crazy. And bring them to shows is good. And I'm saying this for everybody. You learn how to deal with adults. You learn how to manners. You learn negotiation skills. You learn math skills. I just think it's a positive all the way around.
absolutely. It's the way they engaged, and you got to smile, and someone's always got to be at the booth. You can't both go running away and leave all your stuff. So it taught them so many things, and I know it will continue to teach them. But more than anything, it's how to take care of something and how to have pride of ownership in things, and what do you do when a guy gets traded? How do you deal with that? So my son sold all his Juan Soto cards this last show, and was
Oh,
so stoked about it because he's mad Juan Soto went to the Yankees. So um, it's just fun to see.
that's kind of cute, actually. Even though he went to the Yankees.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure the question you get most frequently is people coming up to you about their personal grades on the cards. But what are the common questions that you get most often? And have you ever really got anything so off the radar that it really took you aback that you had to really uh, think about it?
Yeah, I mean, that is a very common one. Like my friend used to be a grader, and he told me this would be a 9 or 10. Why did I get a 7? And frequently I'll be able to, like, I shared, I'm not a grader, but you learn some of their techniques, and I know to look at the surface and things like that, and I'll frequently find what the issue is. And I always say the same thing to a customer. I'm going to show you this, but once I show you it, you're not going to be able to unsee it. And it's going to make you feel differently about this card you really care about. Do you still want to know what the issue is? And they always say yes. And then I always show them, and they're like, oh. And they just walk away all defeated. And I don't want a customer to walk away like that. But our business is a really tricky one where, for a lot of customers, these things are so close and personal to them. It's almost like a child. And they're paying us to tell them in some cases that they have an ugly baby. And that is very, very tough for some people to stomach. So, yeah, I mean, grade complaints are usually the ones that are more involved, where I've got to show them, and it can be a little more heated exchange. But more frequently than not, it's just all the navigating the services we offer. So there are so many different ways that you can encapsulate a card. Do you want no grade to the card, but a grade to the autograph? Do you want a grade to the card, but no grade to the autograph? Do you want dual service, a card grade, and autograph? Do you just want it slabbed as authentic? There's so many different ways to do that. So helping people navigate through that. And then, with some of our other offerings, type 1 photos, type 1 photo autographs, do you grade the autograph as well? And banknotes, like for PCGS, they do you could get a regular banknote done, or you could get like a whole bundle of them done. So it's called a pack. So it's really interesting, all the different services we provide, but explaining them to customers, explaining why there's a reason that we do those things, and why people get excited about pack grading, for example. So is usually what a lot of our questions are about. And it's fun helping people navigate that. And you really have to kind of be in person or in front of them to help guide them through that landscape.
All right. As we wind up here, I've got to know: have you ever looked at a PSA card and just totally disagreed? And at the same time, have you ever bought a card based on grade, or are you a card person? Buy the card, not the grade.
I try to buy most of my stuff unslabbed. I still think a lot of people just don't go through the grading process. And frequently, like, I've got 2 cards here that the card's got a 9, the autograph got a 10, and I bought them raw. And I know what to look for. But to your point, I think that there's value sometimes in buying an older PSA slab if you really look at it. And this is an older Yoda promo that is a really cool one. But it's that older slab, and I want to crack it out and have our graders give another look at it, because to me it looks pretty darn good. So throughout the eras, I think maybe there were times when PSA was maybe a little tighter, maybe a little looser, but since Nat's acquired the company, it's been pretty dang consistent. But I think it's worth a relook sometimes, and being able to see how the coin industry works. It's fascinating, Danny, where coin collectors will fight. Now, coins, it's not a scale of 1 to 10, it's a scale of 1 to 70. And
Okay.
coin collectors will fight for a plus grade. So 1 to 70, and then you can get like a 68 plus, which means like it's in the top, it's like a 9.5, like those 0.5. So, but it means like it's in the top 20%. And they will crack out and submit a coin 30, 40 times, hoping that it just
Oh
gets
my
that
goodness.
plus grade next to it. And they do it so frequently, the graders call them old friends in the grading room, because they've seen these coins so many times. But they say that they're fighting for their coin, and they've been doing this a while. They know that if it gets a look like again, maybe it'll get that plus grade. And I think that it's worth doing that on the card side sometimes too, is fighting for your card and resubmitting. And one of the funniest things I saw, Danny, just this last week, since my whole entire time I've been at PSA, it was a Caitlin Clark card that came in, and the top corner was chipped off as though the customer was going to crack it out and resubmit. One problem, the top corner said Gem Mint 10, and on the card itself was a post-it note that read, "I'm an idiot. I was cracking out some PSA 9s to resubmit and didn't realize that this one was a 10." And
Oh,
so we're just dying seeing this come in, because we're like, all right, we'll reholder it for you. But it makes you realize that there are a fairly decent amount of people out there that want to fight for their cards too. And reconsideration is one thing. So you can resubmit it in a holder to be reconsidered, to have the grade reconsidered, and we'll look at it again. But it's hard to see things through the plastic sometimes. Grading's three-dimensional is something I've definitely learned. So a lot of dealers want or collectors want to give their card the best shot at a grade. So they'll carefully crack it out and resubmit. But I get very nervous with crackouts. Like, you've got to be super duper careful with them, because it's cracking plastic next to a very condition sensitive item. And when I see it, like I just get so nervous, because there's little things flying all over the place and what. But it is something that's kind of fun to see when someone fights for their card and gets that, hey, it was a 9 instead of an 8 or something like that. So
no, I have a friend who's good at cracking. I don't even try. I
yes.
can't put a card and Home Depot together and make it work.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I,
absolutely.
I have a friend, and I do believe in fighting for a card if you need to. That's great advice.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people think that it's annoying or it's improper, and there's nothing wrong with fighting for your card.
No, nothing at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris, you are a true collector, and that's why I love talking to you. I really appreciate your time today, and good luck moving forward. I hope PSA has a fantastic rest of the year and moving forward for you as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Danny. Great talking with you, and let's go Orioles. Let's see if we can
Yeah,
get
absolutely, and let's go
for the
Padres.
future. So
Yeah.
appreciate you,
All
brother.
right. I'll keep you in the green room. To everybody else, catch you next time on Hobby News Daily. See you.
Thanks.